Creigh. Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me okay? Okay. All righty. Well, thank you for joining us today for Pancakes and Politics, CAAR's 2024 Legislative Breakfast. Can you hear me? Okay, all righty. As you know, I'm S. Lisa Herndon, and I'm CAAR's immediate past president as of last week. This time last week, I was still president. All righty, and we all know that property rights and home ownership opportunities is one of the pillars of CAAR's strategic plan. But advocacy does not stop at the ballot box. We know we need to be very active and very intentional about everything that we do when it comes to protecting homeowner rights. Working with our colleagues at Virginia Realtors, we impact the General Assembly every single day. Oh, I was running in here and got a little bit out of breath, so give me a little moment. Advocacy takes many forms, as we know. As realtors, we make our political voices heard through individual investments, such as the Realtor Political Action Committee, RPAC as we know it. I'm happy to report that 2023, we have over 51 of our members supporting RPAC. We had 24 CAAR major investor members, which means that those members have invested at least $1,000. We raised over $66,000 this year to support candidates who support CAAR. For the 9th year straight, CAAR has garnered the National Association of Realtors RPAC Triple Crown Award. So we're keeping that streak going. Our participation has been great and our investors have been holding strong. Many thanks to CAAR's RPAC chair, Anita Dunbar. Is she in here today? Okay, well, give her a hand in her absence. And of course, Hal Johnson, who is here today. For their outstanding accomplishments. I appointed them new this year and they rocked it, as you can tell. They did an excellent job. Thank you, Hal. We are very fortunate to have our entire legislative delegates with us this morning. I see some on both sides of me. Our legislators come from a variety of backgrounds in our delegation to provide a welcoming balance of viewpoints, political viewpoints, and they focus on emerging ideas. I would like to now take a moment to introduce them. State Senator Creigh Deeds. Representing new 11th Senate District, which includes the counties of Albemarle, Amherst, Nelson, and a part of Louisa, as well as the city of Charlottesville. Creigh has served in the state Senate since 2001. He served in the House delegate for 92 through 2001. Wow, you've been there a while. While not new to elected office, she served as the Albemarle County School Board delegate-elect. Katrina Callsen will be. Somebody said, yay. Starting her first term representing the new 54th district. The 54th district includes the city of Charlottesville and parts of Albemarle County. A former member of Charlottesville City School Board, 55th district delegate-elect Amy Laufer. Starting her first term in the House. Woo! Lots of exciting things to learn. The 55th district includes portions of Albemarle. Albemarle is pretty big, right? Albemarle, Fluvanna, Louisa, and Nelson County. Today, I have asked Neil Williamson to moderate this morning's meeting, this morning's panel. So as president of the Free Enterprise Forum, how long has Neil been working here for us? Long time, 21 years. working with the state and local government to protect our property rights and making sure that our voices continue to be heard. So please join us now, Neil. Come on up. Welcome, Neil. Give him a hand of applause.
There's no assigned seating. And as we go through, first off, thank you for being here. As others are gearing up for breakfast with Santa, I like pancakes and politics. That's my day. I want to take a minute to thank the staff from the Hillsdale Conference Center, specifically Brett Woodyard. Did you guys get some good pancakes this morning? I want to thank the Corner Restaurant for the pancakes because those are pretty awesome. I am happy to be here starting my 21st year working with you guys. It has been truly a blessing to work on property rights. In this role, I work with the CAAR's Public Affairs Group, volunteer leadership, and our good friends at Virginia Realtors on their annual legislative agenda. 2024 is an important year for the General Assembly. With the change in composition of the Senate, the Democrats control the General Assembly, and a term-limited Republican controls the executive mansion and the veto pen. Today, we have 3 of our state legislators with us. Rather than getting questions from the audience, we've allotted time at the conclusion of the formal agenda for you to ask your representatives questions directly. At this point, much of the legislation I will be discussing is currently being drafted. Some has been entered. While Virginia Realtors has been working all year with legislators and volunteer leadership, the formal Realtor legislative agenda will not be approved until tomorrow at the Public Policy Committee meeting in Williamsburg. As most of you know, legislation is an iterative process. And what comes out of LIS is different than what will cross over, which may be somewhat different than what eventually gets passed or not. And in my experience, the bills that are signed by the governor look very different than the initial proposals. That is the legislative process. Before opening it up to the legislators, I wanted to put the plug in for CAAR's Day on the Hill. It's going to be February 1st, 2024. We'll be taking a busload of CAAR realtors to Capitol Hill to talk to legislators and their talented staff about pending legislation. CAAR members know advocacy for property rights is a marathon, not a sprint. As such, you will recognize many of the most important battles will not be based on a legislative agenda looking forward, but protecting property rights in other bills that are proposed. The key points in these defensive battles are open discussions with the policymakers. These discussions are based on our relationships with the legislators. We are lucky to have the talented VR lobbying team on the Hill every day. I'm down there probably 3 or 4 days a year during session, but the VR team is working every day. For those looking ahead, Day on the Hill is February 1st. Attendance is limited. Without further ado, I'm going to turn the meeting over to our legislators, who will each provide a 3 to 5 minute introduction and maybe a little preview of their legislative priorities for 2024. After that, we'll get to some very specific questions that I have here. Recognizing what S. Lisa called his seniority, we're going to start with Senator Deeds. First question. No, your seniority will go first. Opening statement and perhaps any agenda items on your agenda. And turn on and off the mic when you get started and stop, and hold it close, please, because we are recording.
Hold it close. With that, thank you all so much. I appreciate the invitation. I appreciate your support. I appreciate the opportunity to continue to serve in the General Assembly. I'll tell you, I've been this will be my 33rd session. I still get goosebumps when I walk in that building. It's really an unbelievable process. Legislative process is like sausage making. Bismarck said that in the 1870s, I think, and he was absolutely correct. There are 2 things you don't want to see made: sausage and laws. And I've probably seen as much sausage made, been involved in that as much as I've been in lawmaking. My responsibilities will change somewhat this year. I've been co-chair of the Judiciary Committee. I'll chair the Commerce and Labor Committee this time. I've chaired the Capital Outlay Subcommittee of Finance, which kind of put me in the position to go through primarily building projects on college campuses and other state buildings, other state projects. I'll move to Health and Human Services. It's a bigger part of the budget, and it's more in the wheelhouse of things that I'm interested in. So I'll move. That'll be my responsibility this year. With the legislature that's now controlled by the Democrats, I don't think you're going to see a huge change. Democrats are probably going to want to put some bills on the governor's desk that he will have to make some decisions on. But I really hope that we limit those opportunities. I think it's more the governor still has to sign the bills to make law. So we still have to find a way to work together, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do that. The big change you'll see. In Virginia, we have to balance the budget, and we have 60-day session, 46 days in short years. Typically, we get a budget done at the end of the session and have the amendments approved by the veto session. The last 2 years, you've seen an extension. This past year, we went all the way till September without a budget. That was due to the fact that the governor basically used the fact that we had all these excess COVID dollars from the federal government to create a surplus, to create an illusion of a surplus. And the House of Delegates went along with him, and they stretched us out. And so we at the end of the day, we agreed to tax cuts, but we agreed primarily to tax cuts that are temporary, one-time in nature. And I would suggest that that's not going to happen this time around. We'll get a budget done on time. We are back. The COVID money is run out. It's going to be done by the end of the year, by the end of 2024. We'll be back in a normal budgeting type cycle where you'll have fat years and you'll have lean years. This is going to be a lean year. This is going to be a year where budgeting is tough. For several years, we've had the COVID money, and we could do lots of things with it. We don't have it anymore. So we've got a whole new set of challenges we're going to have to address this year. I look forward to your input as we move along. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Laufer.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you again for having us here. I know many of you in the room, and I'm excited to be here. I think some of you already know my background. I was on the school board in the city for 7 years. I lived here about 20 years. I was a middle school math and science teacher. I'm from a dairy farm. And as I'm sorry, I'm blank. Thank you. Had mentioned the district is partially rural, urban, and suburban. And so I've put in, I'm just going to cut to the chase. Sorry. I put in for the education committee. I put in for the ag committee. I'm from a dairy farm. Much of the district is rural and has some farm. And I put in for the healthcare committee. We haven't been, sworn in yet, and we haven't been given our committee assignments yet. So, it's still up in the air as to what will happen. I'm really interested in hearing from you. I've already heard from some of my constituents that are in HOAs. So I'd love to hear, maybe we can talk a little bit about that. And I'm noticing many of the priorities you have are the same priorities that our county has. The 2 counties I've met with so far have talked about some of these issues. So excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate-elect Katrina Callsen.
Hello. So when I woke up last night, I'm trying to get myself in shape before I go into session because I feel like I'm going to have a big step backwards January, February, and March and not have any time to work out. So I'm like, I'm going to get up at 6:30 tomorrow and I'm going to go walk. And I looked at my calendar and I'm like, I have a breakfast at 7:30 a.m. And so I woke up this morning and I was a little bit salty about it. I was like, there's not going to be anyone there. Who comes to a breakfast at 7:30 a.m.? And the answer is all of you. And this has been one of the most well-attended events I've been to. So I just want to say thank you. And I can tell that you guys are professionals and that you know how it is dealing with people where you have to be where the people are. You have to meet them where they are, and you have to make yourself available. And that's one of the ways. People are nodding, And that's one of the ways that I hope that I can continue to serve when I'm in Richmond as well. Since I am new, I'll just give like the 30-second intro, which is that I'm Deputy City Attorney for Charlottesville. So I'm a local government attorney. I do not do transactional law that much. I represent the airport, Department of Social Services, General Registrar. I also was on the Albemarle County School Board. I resigned this year when I got elected. I was the chair though up until August. I am really looking to learn from you all, learn your priorities. I appreciate this event. I'm happy to tell you I put in for courts, general laws, and social services, health, welfare, and institutions. I don't know which ones I'm going to get. I also have put into drafting. I am still working most of my bills outside of foster care. Foster care is an area of my expertise, so that one I had a jump start on. But if you look at Charlottesville's legislative priorities, there are some that might touch upon some of the work you do. They're about tenant protections. So I'm still working those bills, but there were 4 that they put forward that I at least put into drafting. I've not filed them, and they're around making it so that when someone rents a space, they have a separate sheet that lists all the fees that will be associated with that rental. I think there's some legislation right now that makes it so it has to at least be in the lease, but it's often hard to see or in the back, or people don't understand what they're signing up for. That one's probably on the easier scale to pass. On the further scale, that's going to be harder to pass because I know it's already run into roadblocks before, are making it so there's some caps on how much you can raise rent over a given time period. And Darius Clark had introduced something around that in the past. So that's another one that we're going to be working. So I'm happy to hear y'all's opinions on that, but just know that that's out there and coming up. And then I took this. I was hoping that when Neil asked me questions, I can just flip through this and find all the answers I need. But I did attend the zoning hearing at the city of Charlottesville. I feel like almost all of Charlottesville was there. So I know that's a contentious issue that's coming up. I can tell you, I don't, as a local government attorney and employee, I do feel like zoning is a highly localized issue. And so I'm curious your thoughts on it, though. I was there. I know a little bit about it, but there's big changes coming in Charlottesville, maybe. We'll see how they vote. So I'm happy to talk about that too.
Thank you. And for the record, the Charlottesville Area Association of Realtors has endorsed the zoning code, and while there are issues within the code, there are things that we think should be changed. Overall, the overarching goals of the code and the language we are supportive of, and in fact, launched a rather significant campaign, the largest campaign in our history, to support that particular code change. Our first question goes to Senator Deeds. I call it the Christmas tree question. CAAR supports a broad-based, multifaceted tax system. CAAR is supportive of the efforts of several of our localities to have the ability to levy additional sales tax via referendum. Prior to 2022, 9 localities had requested this ability and 9 were approved. In 2022 and 2023, you sponsored bills that I believe failed in committee. Senator McPeak has pre-filed Senate Bill 14, which represents a significant change in tactics for legislation on this issue. Can you share this tactical shift with our group, and do you believe these efforts will be successful this year?
Well, I don't think it's that much of a change of tactics. Last year, I had a bill that would have allowed Charlottesville and Albemarle to raise the sales tax a penny. Jennifer McClellan had the same bill that Jeremy McPike has this year. And when we both of those bills passed the Senate, they got over to the House of Delegates. They were tied up in a subcommittee of Senate Finance there, or the House Finance. There was a Republican delegate from this idea. What's crazy about this? Sometimes we get so bound up in partisanship, we forget about the people we represent. This idea initially was generated from a Republican delegate from Halifax County. A lot of us looked at the sales tax bill then and said, how in the world can Halifax County, they don't have any retail base. How can they generate enough money to build a school? Well, they did. Every locality that's seen this bill, all 9 of them have passed it. They in referendum because it requires a referendum. Pennsylvania failed the first time, but they passed it the second time. Anyway, this Republican delegate from Campbell County who chaired the subcommittee, Kathy Byron, felt that it was just bad politics for Republicans to be in favor of any form of tax increase. And so she bottled the bills up. Well, last year we took Jennifer's big bill, the one that was statewide, and we stuck it in the budget so we could continue the conversation during the budget conference. Of course, that didn't get anywhere. So Jeremy's bill this year, that I'll co-sponsor, is exactly the same tactic we've tried in the past. And it's one of those things I think we will get passed, and one of those things we'll put on the governor's desk and he'll have an opportunity to make a decision about. You know, I don't think he's ever taken a position on this, but this is certainly a self-help sort of notion if you're going to fund school construction. We've got a school construction problem in this state that's identified at several, like $28 billion. It's a huge problem. It's not going to go away. And so this is one way I think that makes sense to fix it.
Thank you. Question 2 goes to Delegate-elect Laufer. Despite efforts from previous General Assemblies, the federal government, rural broadband continues to be an issue for our members and their clients. Broadband is fast becoming the first question potential buyers ask when they're touring a home. What, if anything more, should the General Assembly do regarding rural broadband propagation?
This is absolutely an issue that has come up, especially, I did run for state senate in 2019, and that was much more rural. And the folks out in Orange County, Louisa County were complaining that they could not sell their homes because there was no internet access. It's gotten a lot better on some level, especially Louisa. They're projected to have full broadband access by 2025. And the federal government has really stepped up there, by the way, through the efforts of Abigail Spanberger, Congresswoman, but they did bring it up in their legislative priority as well. There are a lot of efforts happening. Part of the issue is what constitutes good broadband. Like, you know, how fast is the speed? So some of the mapping is not perfect, which is what has been causing the delay, but that's been kind of addressed through localities. Specifically, Louisa has done a great job mapping where the broadband gaps are and focusing on targeting those areas. I could go on to other issues. The easement has been a problem, trying to get access. The last mile is always the most expensive. In Louisa's case, they've actually put a lot of money locally towards that, and they're asking the state to increase the budget for broadband access, which I hope to do. But as Senator Deeds has mentioned, the budget requests are always difficult. But it's definitely an issue, and it definitely affects, you know, home sales, etc. So definitely going to focus on making sure we have that.
Thank you. Question 3 goes to Delegate-elect Callsen. And this you heard about on Thursday as well at the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors meeting. Public safety is an important part of real estate. In rural portions of our communities, we have seen an increase in vehicles speeding and crashes. Some localities are requesting the power to utilize speed cameras to enforce speed laws on roadways that do not allow safe patrolling by police due to their lack of shoulders and many tight turns. What are your thoughts about speed cameras?
Oh, I'm going to be completely honest. My thoughts were, I'm going to hand that to Amy. That is what I told Emily. So I met with Emily, who's the legislative liaison for Albemarle County, and she went through their list of priorities that they have. They really did a very short list. Since there's so many new legislators, it's getting funding $58 million, hopefully for a 1-to-1 match for property that's up at Urbana Station. It is the 1% sales tax for schools, which I did introduce that one into drafting. And I think there are probably going to be other legislators who did as well. And then there was the speed cameras. And when we were dividing them up, I said, you know, Amy's representing the primarily rural districts. So I will let her do that one. And I believe she did. Yes. And I don't think, I am curious, Neil, what's going to happen this year, because we had a caucus meeting on Saturday, and they're not really giving us a lot of intel around what other Democrats have put in, but she did use as an example, you know, for example, if there are 8 speed camera bills that are introduced. So I think there are other delegates who are introducing legislation around speed cameras. And I know you said no gotcha questions, but I will just say, I understand why they need them. I certainly do. I'm probably going to get a ticket because I did ask them the margin. I did ask them the margin of error and they said it is 1 mile per hour. So you can tell right now who speeds and who doesn't. But I do think that Albemarle's got a very measured approach to what they're asking for. They are looking to put them in areas of the county where there have been high fatalities and accidents, and there's an inability to enforce via regular police cruiser because there's either no shoulder to pull someone over. That's the main reason, no shoulder to pull someone over, or just the expenditure of resources to put cops on rural roads versus concentrated in the urban ring. So I can be supportive of that. That's what I told them. And then I asked for them to talk with Amy a little bit more about it to get it introduced into drafting.
Amy, anything to add on that?
That this is on. The fact that it was mentioned on Saturday that there's 8 other ones, that feels pretty good. Like, obviously, there's going to be a lot of communities that, and this is we tried before and it has failed. But I think having more communities wanting this type of technology is good for us.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, can I add one thing I should tell y'all? They did say there were 8 passed, but I forgot the secondary part of that, which is they said, warning, there is a split. That is not a partisan issue. And so it's not assumed because there's a majority those are going to pass. They said in the past, they've really been split. Some Republicans like it. Republicans live in rural areas too. And some Democrats like it. And it's a little hard to tell. They said they don't really know how those are going to go.
All right. And for background, the General Assembly 2 terms ago approved the use of speed cameras in school zones and work zones. And those are being implemented as we speak. The question number 4 goes to Senator Deeds. Housing inventory is an issue across the Commonwealth. Realtors believe in property rights and often see those rights being limited by local regulation. Is there a role for state government to reduce regulatory burdens to increase housing affordability and increase housing inventory and positively impact housing affordability?
In general, localities are in charge of property, of zoning use laws, things like that. The state is not going to get in the middle of it. The state is generally going to, our responsibility is to make sure the housing trust fund is in place, make sure that the broad rules work well for everybody, and then let the localities figure it out. But the problem is that problem is so acute, and housing is an issue everywhere, that it's an issue that the state, I think, is going to have to get involved in. And here's another land use issue that the state's going to have to get involved in. We are never going to hit our goals under the Clean Economy Act if we allow localities to say no to large solar arrays. The state is going to have to take a large role in property use in general, in my view. And some of that's good and some of it's bad. I mean, I worry about the state taking too large of a role, but I think the state's going to have to get involved in housing.
Well, in that note, Albemarle County has said publicly that they are in favor of generating solar energy up to the level of the energy they use and no more. I find that to be an interesting place to draw a line. Next question goes to Delegate-elect Laufer. Last week, you heard from Albemarle County regarding their top priority of infrastructure funding for their economic development project, Rivanna Futures. What are your thoughts on such a state investment?
Great question. I was actually talking with, I'm just going to say Donna Price. I know she has the chair of Albemarle Board of Supervisors after the meeting. So I just want to explain the project first. So this is part of not National Ground Intelligence, but across the street is another organization that, has high-tech intelligence for the nation's security. And part of maintaining that space and that business, which by the way is a $1.2 billion industry in our area, brings in a lot of high-tech jobs and great, it's a great opportunity for us to keep. But to have that in our area, we need to protect the space around it so that it can't be adjacent properties cannot be bought by foreign entities, et cetera. So part of what the Board of Supervisors determined was to kind of bring all the property around that together and purchase it, which is a $58 million purchase price. And that's huge, but they've determined that they're going to do this. I actually think this is a great opportunity for the county. Like, absolutely, we want to keep this business here. So they're going to be closing, I believe, this week on the property. But what they're asking for the state government is to put an investment of $53 million to help prepare the site for development, which, as Senator Deed said, is a big price tag. So, but what we did see, this past week, the Paul Manning, biotech investment that the state did, I think that was $50 million as well. At UVA property, they're going to be, breaking ground shortly, which is also a really exciting opportunity for the county and the city to have this amazing industry in our area. So I think it's a great investment. I think $53 million could be a hurdle, but I think it is something that we can really make an argument for because of the amazing $1.2 billion industry in Albemarle County. We can increase that. I actually think this governor might be interested in something like that. We just have to make sure we understand who's going to be moving into those sites and what will that entail. But I'm new, so I'm optimistic. So thank you.
Thank you. I think it's important to recognize the jobs that come along with those economic development opportunities. And those people are going to have to live somewhere. And so that housing inventory issue is directly tied to economic development. And how far are you going to make those folks drive is directly tied to your climate goals. So question 6 goes to both our new legislators, and we'll start with Delegate-elect Callsen. What has surprised you about your position since being elected?
A lot. Did you hear that? A lot. I have never heard, I've listened to Creigh speak quite a bit because we've been doing a lot of these events probably for the past year, and I had never heard that sausage making analogy. And I feel like that resonated with me because I do feel like I'm witnessing sausage being made, and I'm trying to find my footing about how I feel about that. There is just so much I didn't necessarily understand about what was happening behind the scenes, and that has been surprising for me. And I have been, just to speak to Delegate-elect Laufer's point, really trying to lean into my optimism and why I'm doing this work and make sure that I can bring my voice. And so I'm excited. But yeah, that's been the most surprising, there's a lot of politicians in Richmond and there's a lot of personalities, and you got to learn how to get along with people. And that's what I'm doing.
Amy, anything to add?
Oh, there we go. Actually, I want to just say I'm really excited to take on this work. And what I've been really surprised about is how engaged, well, actually, this isn't true. I actually knew this, but everyone here is so engaged in, our process. I've received so many emails from folks, with real issues. And I'm totally amazed at the breadth of kind of all the issues. I have a background in education, so obviously that's my wheelhouse. But I was hoping we talk about HOAs only because it keeps coming up in almost every conversation I'm having. But the dirty water at Shenandoah Crossings, okay, what can I do to help them? The Louisa County kind of list of priorities was, about the algal blooms at Lake Anna, at the hydrophila, so there's so much other things. I proposed a speed camera, that wasn't my wheelhouse, but it's, so anyway, just the breadth of issues, I think has been amazing. And the detail that people have sent me, really a 12-page bill about mattress recycling. That happened. So, like, it's just really, I'm really excited to do this. And I really do want to work with you. I think, to be honest with you, I think land use is going to be like the #1 issue as we're entering into this new climate mitigation, climate crisis issue. And having your expertise, to help us in these policies, I think is going to be really important. So thank you so much again.
Thank you. Our next question goes to the ever optimistic Senator Deeds. How can CAAR members best engage with you this legislative session? And what sage advice would you give our new members of the General Assembly?
What I told my friend Scott Servell when he was elected majority leader is that the best leaders sometimes follow. And it's always better to listen more than you talk. And that's probably my best advice. Listen, no. He suggested that's the best advice I would give anybody involved in this process. The legislators, I can't speak for all 140, but I can speak for myself. I operate on the best information available. And sometimes I don't have the best information. If you know something, reach out. When I first got elected, there were 3 ways a person could contact the legislator: go see them, call them, or write them a letter. Email happened in about 1997 or 98, and it changed the world. It meant instead of a few hundred letters a week, I got a few hundred emails a day. But we go through them. We go through them. Contact me. If you know something, don't assume that your legislator has all the answers. Don't assume that what you know is obvious. Assume that I don't have that information. You need to reach out to every legislator, and that you can. I've said this a lot, that whether you vote for them or whether you like them, you have a responsibility to know your legislators. Have coffee with them, talk to them, tell them what's important to you. Tell them what's important to the people they represent that you know. Share your views and share your information. That will, and if that, I might not change my mind, but it'll make me a better legislator because it'll give me more information.
Great. Well, thank you. I will. Yes, please.
Deeds is right. There are so many ways to contact us. I would just say, if you are a Facebook friend with me, which I am with many of you, that's not a great way to contact me through Messenger because I don't really check that. So email is the best way, and it's DELA Laufer, LAUFER at house.virginia.gov. Or texting me. Many of you have my cell phones. That's great too. But the Messenger thing, I hardly check it, and just wanted to let you know.
In addition, I want to put a shout out. I've worked with Senator Deeds' staff, Tracy Eppert specifically, and I know our new delegates will have excellent staff, and their time is very challenged. If you need to speak to somebody about a complex issue, talking to their staff works. It is a very important part of the system. And so I will say that when we do Day on the Hill, oftentimes we'll see Senator Deeds in the hall, give a wave, and then we'll get down to brass tacks with Tracy, because that's where, not that the work gets done, but that's the time that she can dedicate to a complex issue. So I encourage you to get to know the folks on the various delegates and senators' staff, because they are what makes the game go. With that being said, I wanted to leave time for you guys to have time to meet, mix and mingle. There's more pancakes. I want to ask you to thank our legislators for coming out early this morning. Thank you for coming. And Day on the Hill, February 1st. It's on the portal now. You can register. It's a free event. RPAC underwrites this event and Day on the Hill. Thank you and good day.